Hello and welcome back to Astro Self Care Sundays. It's Kenya, and we're starting a new series today. So I am excited. I'm super excited. I get so excited about astrology. It's so weird. Like, I have fun with it a lot. So excuse my excitement, but I'm really excited. So I see my little thing on my screen saying that my Wi Fi may be a little funky. So if this is a little blurry for a moment, I apologize. I hopefully it will start to correct itself if it's doing that. If it's not doing that, ignore it. Okay. But it may come in and out. Sometimes Wi Fi does that. So we are now starting our planet series. And before we get into it, hey, y'all, hey, happy Self Care Sunday, Astro Self Care Sunday. If you are new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. You have lots to catch up on. Lots to catch up on. We did a whole series where I literally went through every single zodiac sign and talked about the high frequencies, meaning the high energy, the things that work for you in that sign, the lower frequencies, the things that can hold you back energetically with that particular sign, and then self care activities. And so, if it's your sun, moon, or rising, you want to go back and look at every little sign. So if you're like, oh, I'm an Aries, go find the Aries video, go watch it. Also, make sure before you do any of that you subscribe. And then make sure you push like and all the things. If you are already a subscriber, yay, welcome back. How you doing? How you doing? If you are already a subscriber, then you know you need to already push like, right? Right. Oh, see my mug, blessed. I love this little mug. I have these mugs that say these different things just to keep you on the up and up. Anyway, welcome back. And I'm excited to do this next series because now we're going to start talking about planets. Okay. If you really, really enjoy this is the thing. If you find yourself coming back every Sunday to watch this and you've never had a birth chart reading done, or we've never met, we've never had a session together, I think it's time. I think it's time that we do. So I know I people are finding, me and this content on YouTube across the world. Across the world. I just got a new client all the way from the Netherlands. And I love that. I love that so much because this is something that I don't know. I just think astrology is super important. And I think that as we are moving into more interesting, challenging, different times, you're going to have to shift up how you understand yourself. You're going to have to start thinking outside the box. We're being called to that. And astrology, while it may appear that it's very outside the box, when you really start getting into it, it's clear as day when you really start learning it. But it takes a lot of time and you need support and you need guidance. So again, I would love if I usually start with just a free discovery call just to see, is this something that you really want to do in terms of a reading? A lot of times we just jump in and do readings, or we just jump in and do, whatever self-help program or whatever. And I'm not one, I'm a patient one on this. I'm about, take your time with this because one, you need to feel comfortable with me so that as we're talking, as I'm doing the guidance, you are feeling safe and supported, right? So by doing that free discovery call, we just get to energetically get to know each other more. You get to learn a little bit more what's involved. And it's free. Like what? So if you go into the description here, you can find out all the things of how to get in touch with me. Also to come to my website, which is findingyourvoiceafter40.com. Now, if you're under 40, doesn't mean that you don't. I have a podcast called Finding Your Voice After 40. And that is how that kind of title, that website came. I didn't change the whole domain, but anybody, this is offered to anybody. Okay. Anybody. And so you can follow me on social media. You see the at Kenya MJ Music, and we can get to know each other. All right. So we're doing a series on planets, and we're starting off with a star. We're starting off with the sun. The sun is technically not a planet, but it's extremely, extremely important in astrology. Okay. And it is what we are most familiar with. Oh, this tea is so good. It's a detox tea with some maple syrup in it. If you want to learn more about how to get that, let me know. Put it in the comments. Anyway, the sun is what we're most familiar with, our sun sign. So when people ask, "Oh, what's your sign?" "Oh, I'm a, like I said, Aries, or I'm a Libra, or I'm a Gemini, I'm a Scorpio," whatever. That's what we more mainstream know is our sun sign. And what does that mean? All that means is the position of the sun was in whatever particular zodiac sign at the time that you were born. But what does the sun mean? Planets are very important. To me, honestly, planets are probably the most. Everything is working together. Like it's and you'll see this if you really start to read more about astrology. You'll hear people refer to astrology as almost like a play. So you have characters, you have settings, you have the characters' personalities, and the planets are considered the characters of the play, right? And so without the characters, we don't really have a play, right? So your zodiac sign is like the character's personalities, right? So how you end up liking that character, or those things that character does that make you really irritated or whatever, that's more of the zodiac sign, the characteristics. But the planets are the character. And so without the planet, we really don't have the manifestation of the sign. The sign is waiting for the planet so that it can be the trait of the planet. But the planet is truly the character, and every character has a certain thing about it, a certain thing it's attempting to do. Okay? And so your planets are attempting to do something in your life. As your soul is having this journey, as it's having this experience, as it's meeting new people, it's growing or what have you, it's using the planets as characters to make this play of life that you're having. And so each week we're going to kind of go through the different characters. So if you can think of it that way, I my goal is to make astrology really accessible, and more than accessible, usable. So in addition to me talking about the planets, I'm also going to then talk about self-care and things you can do to support the planet. Okay. Now, it gets a little bit more layered because depending on what sign your planet is, then how you go about doing that self-care should be more in alignment with whatever sign you are. Okay. So I'm going to break that down more because it, might get a little confusing. This is the other thing before we really get into the sun. If all of this is sounding really interesting, you like the way that I'm explaining this, you feel like you're learning something each week, or if you're new and just within these 8 minutes, you feel like, I learned something a little bit new. I do have a new class, a new virtual class that will start in March. We've opened registration. It's limited seats. We already have people signing up, so the seats are going down. It's a foundations in astrology class. It's a 6-week class that's going to be happening in live time, although it will be recorded. So whether I think though, if you want to attend this class, you need to be available the majority of the times. We'll be meeting on Monday evenings, U.S. time. If you're across the country and you really want to do this, just understand we will be meeting in the evenings in the U.S. time. Okay. But if you want to stick with YouTube University for a minute, here we go. Okay. So let's talk about the sun. And I have to break this up a little bit different. I have my notes, y'all. I keep my notes. Because I'm still trying to keep this 30 minutes or less, right? So what is the sun? Okay. Well, the sun is what's considered a personal planet. Okay. And I know the sun is technically not a planet, but in astrology, we're just going to term it as that. Okay. Just for the sake of what we're doing. Oh, I should probably turn my phone because it's going to start ringing all over. Let's turn it off. Okay. So certain, as we go through these planets, some planets are a part of that are more ego and more personal, and you can feel more, and they're very tangible and they're right there. Other planets are a little bit more kind of in the middle, like You can kind of feel them, but then they also kind of sit in the subconscious. Okay. So you're not always aware. So understand ego is more of the conscious. And then, the other is more your higher self or that subconscious. We're not always tuned in. We have to work to get to the subconscious. And that's why you'll find when we get to the more outer planets or the more subconscious planets, those are heavier energy planets because they're working in a different space of our consciousness. Okay. And we have to work harder to recognize what it is they're even doing. And that's what makes astrology a personal development tool. Because depending on certain parts of your chart, certain things are going to be very obvious to you. Your sun energy, your sun sign, it's obvious. It's very tangible. It's right there. It's very personal. But when we start getting into Pluto or we start getting into Neptune, particularly Neptune, you don't, it's not in the conscious, it's not part of the ego, and it's not person, it's not right there. And so, but it's working really hard and it stays. It's a slow, they're far, far away, so they're slow moving. So they linger around a longer time to help you out. But the sun, as we know, the sun takes 365 days for it to get all the way around. So it's fairly personal. Okay. The sun, actually, its ruling sign is Leo. So if you're a Leo, you are ruled by the sun. And so this becomes really important as you listen to this. If Leo is your sun sign, your moon sign, that Leo, or no, if Leo is your sun sign, but honestly, if Leo is any of the other signs, understand it's being ruled by the sun. Okay. So that's important. The sun also rules the fifth house. We are eventually going to get to the houses. We're not there yet, but the houses, remember, just represent different parts of your life. Okay. So I'm not going to explain all that's in the fifth house, but if you just put this all together that I'm about to say about the sun, it will tell you a lot about what the fifth house is because the sun rules the fifth house. All right. So in its high frequency, the sun is about the self-image and our willpower, our identity, our character. Okay. And us living in the light of that. Think about what the sun does. It shines, right? But in its lower frequency, that shine can turn into vanity. It can turn into selfishness. Okay. And so it's important wherever your sun sign is, this is then where you want to start thinking about the highs and lows of stuff, right? So let's go back to Leo. All right. In its beauty and in its loveliness, because it is ruled by the sun, it is about my image and my identity and my willpower and my character. But if I'm not nurturing that, when the sun doesn't get to fully shine in integrity, it will become more vanity oriented. It will become more self serving as opposed to self inspiring. And your sun's goal is to be self inspiring. Okay. You're inspiring others by shining light. All right. So every planet represents certain things. Okay. And so the next category that I want to talk about is then what does the sun kind of represent, right, when it comes to who we are? Well, the sun actually represents the truth of who you are. It's where you shine. It's where you focus in this lifetime or where you should be focusing in on this lifetime. It's your individuality and it tells how bold you are. So I'm going to use myself as a little bit of an example so that you can kind of follow this a bit more. Because as we keep going, as you see, there's more layers, more to understand. So my sun sign is Scorpio. So if you go back to what I said all about Scorpios, that means that Scorpio energy is a heavy part of my personality. It's a heavy part of my personhood. Now, this is the thing. I know certain people will say, well, I have Taurus or I have Scorpio, but I don't really relate to that. The reason why a lot of times is it depends on how the other planets are communicating to your sun or what position the sun is in or even what house the sun is in. Okay. Because whatever the house the sun is in, that's more of where that energy that for me, my Scorpio sits in the fifth house. So the fifth house, you look at how interesting this is, right? My sun sign, Scorpio, sits in the fifth house that's ruled by the sun. You see how it's all working together, right? So where I shine is in my Scorpio energy and mostly within the fifth house. Fifth house is all about the self image, the self expression, and some other things that we'll get into. So that's all working together, right? But where I mostly use my Scorpio energy is when it comes to fifth house stuff. So self expression, creativity, all right? Also, self image, willpower. Scorpio is all about power, right? So that's why a sun sign in Scorpio, one thing to have Mercury in Scorpio, that the power within your willpower and self image. All right. So, another way to look at the sun sign, understand this. If you are a fire sign, remember we went over fire signs, Aries, Sagittarius, Leo, those are all fire signs. Earth signs are your Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Air signs are your Libra, Gemini. Um, and I always mess this Aquarius. And then your water signs are Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio. And so when it comes to figuring out, okay, well, what is that again? Well, if your sun sign is a fire sign, you're probably full of a boom, very fiery. If your sun sign is an earth sign, you probably have a very down to earth demeanor because, again, this is where we shine. All right. If your sun sign is an air sign like Aquarius or like Gemini or Libra, you're probably living more in your head and not so much in your heart. You're navigating way more from your thinking. Whereas if water sign is your sun sign, you're probably living more in the heart. There's a more of emotional pull, more sentimental, and even have to be obviously careful of a certain clinginess because the emotion wants to connect so strong. All right. So just think of which of those is my sun. So if my sun sign for me is Scorpio, then that means I'm gonna have a more emotional and sentimental thing. So I've got to think of my self-care to be a bit more on the emotional side. That's what's going to help me feel good. Me doing self-care activities that keep me in my mind, keep me in my brain. Obviously, I have earth in my chart as well. But when it comes to my self-identity, when it comes to my willpower, when it comes to who I understand my character to be, then that's when I need to think a little bit more about supporting myself as it relates to emotions. Okay? All right, it gets deep. The other thing about the sun also represents the relationship we have with our father. Okay, so you'll hear that the sun sign and the Saturn sign represent father. But in terms of sun sign and its representation, it represents the experience that you had with your father. Okay. So it doesn't mean your sun sign, like if my sun sign is Scorpio, that doesn't equal, oh, my dad must be a Scorpio. No, it means that the way I experienced him was through a Scorpio energy. Okay. Because my sun sign is Scorpio. And it also represents how it impacted my basic essence of him and what he was into and his personality and how he expressed himself in terms of our relationship. Okay. So this gets really interesting to use myself as an example. My father, his sun sign was Leo. Okay. Now remember what I said about me. My sun sign is Scorpio. Sun is ruled by what? Leo. And my sun sign sits in the fifth house. What is that ruled by? The fifth house is ruled by Leo. What is the fifth house? Creativity, play, children, pleasure. The way my father and I, the way I experienced him most, when I just think in my real life, music was our connection. Play, fun. That's how I experienced my dad. Experienced my dad as a fun guy, as a guy with lots of jokes, as a guy though who also had a certain level of seriousness about him. Wasn't like he was playful, but there was also a seriousness tone with him. And that is that Scorpio. Do you see? See how it matches? So you really want to sit down and start really kind of breaking down, your sun sign and start thinking of it more in that way. All right. And where it is. Now, when we get to houses, you'll really be able to put this together. It gets really fascinating, guys. It gets super fascinating. But let's go. Let's keep on going. All right. So, how do I do the self-care? What are some self-care activities? So remember this, if we're thinking about our sun sign and we're thinking about the planet, the sun, and it's that self-expression, that self-identity, then the best self-care to do is something that allows you to express yourself. Okay. So for me, my sun sign is Scorpio. All right. I should be doing things that allow me to express myself in a more Scorpio way. Okay, that really supports that Scorpio shine that I have. So, Scorpio rules, and I talked about this before. Scorpio rules the occult, it rules things, transformation, power. So, it's important that whatever I do with my self care, I allow it to elicit that expression of myself, transformation, the emotion. There's lots of, self care can be done for a myriad of things. But if you really want to look at this astrologically and you really want to dig more into yourself, if I see somebody, I'm going to use another sign so I can give you another example. If I see somebody who has a Taurus sun sign, all those self-care activities that I said before in terms of doing things that are grounding. Taurus is about the finer things, relating to the finer things, arts, beauty, stability, stabilizing forces, music. Do really to help me step more into my identity. So if I'm having a harder time, maybe really self expressing myself, or I'm having a harder time really connecting to my identity or having others really understand my identity, the way that you can begin to start working on yourself is thinking about what is your sun sign? What were those activities? What were those qualities? What were those traits that I talked about? So when I just said all those things about Taurus, and how can I do activities that support that? So me doing music, me spending time with art, with nature, that's going to help even more propel my sense of expressing myself and my sense of self identity because the sun is about that. And when we get to the moon, it's going to be different. It's going to elicit another part of who we are. But the sun, the self care, things that help to elicit your expression of yourself and your identity. Okay. And your confidence. Okay. And so you want to do those activities that also allow you to really reflect on how you feel about yourself. So the journaling, the therapy, the talking, the writing, if it's more performance, if it's nature, what is going to give you something that really allows you to connect and reflect on how I feel about myself, not just who I am, but how I feel about myself. That's how you are best able to support your sun sign. Okay. Because, and then what that will do is will help improve your self confidence, your self esteem, your self image. So, doing the self care that whatever your sign, this is what I recommend because this is layered. I recommend go back, look at what I talked about with whatever your sun sign is. Okay. So, if you're Aries, go back to the Aries. Gemini, go back to them. Listen to all those different self-care activities I said and understand if it is your sun sign, if Aries is your sun sign, and you do some of those self-care activities, what you are doing is you are perpetuating and supporting a means to your self-confidence, your self-esteem, and your self-image. Because that is what the sun represents. That is the character that the sun plays. So just some other interpretations just in general of the sun and when you think about self-care activities that will give you support. The sun is also about your awareness of yourself, your truth of yourself, your dignity, how you come across to others, your individuality, your autonomy, your self-actualization. So by doing those self-care activities, that I mentioned in the previous videos, they are further supporting your ability to show up in those ways, to show up in your awareness of your attitude, to show up with your dignity, to show up with your individuality and your autonomy. If you don't do those self care things that are related to your sun sign, then all those aspects of you are not getting nurtured. If you are having issues with self esteem, when I'm working with someone and I hear them say, I'm having a tough time with my confidence, I'm feeling minimized, I'm feeling belittled. A couple of things that I'm going to do, obviously, if I'm doing a session, I'm going to look at, okay, well, what position is that planet in? Is the sun in? Okay, someone's going, let's look at the sun. There's some other things. There's some other planets, obviously, that are playing into this. But for the sake of this conversation, yeah, I'm going to look at where the sun is. I'm also going to look at how the other planets are interacting with that, which are called aspects. And we'll get into that later as well. And then I'm going to think, it's like, okay, well, this person is a Leo. So I already know Leo's fire, right? So what did I say about fire? Full of life, self-expression. All right. So when I'm thinking about, okay, what are you doing to nurture your ability to self-express? And when I think about those activities that allow us to self-express, anything around creativity, whether it's actual singing, performing, or it's drawing and it's illustrating, it's self-actualizing. And so let's do some of those activities. Let's do some of that self-care, in addition to obviously other tools that we can use. But these are places we can start that you can do right at home on your own. Okay. All right. So that is our sun sign, the self. Okay. So just to kind of recap, just a summary again, because there's a lot of layers. As you see, the more we get into a lot of layers. That's why astrology is not just fairy tales. It's a science. It's got a lot. So remember, your sun sign is a personal planet. It's more representative of your ego. It's something more tangible. It's in its highest frequency. It's the willpower, your self-image. You have to be careful with the sun sign, though. And that low frequency is the vanity and the selfishness that can come out. And it rules Leo and it rules the fifth house. And the biggest thing is it represents who you really are, where you shine, where your focus is in this lifetime, your individuality, and how bold you are. If you don't connect so much to your sun sign, all that means is probably another planet is communicating with it in a certain way that maybe is not allowing the sun to fully shine. And so, what it's asking in this lifetime is to work through that challenge so that you can be bold. Okay. It's not to just say, oh, well, I just don't. It means in this lifetime, it's wanting you to work through certain challenges so that you do feel a sense of shine, a sense of boldness, a sense of willpower. Okay. We didn't come here to be, even though we may feel that, even though we may not fully connect to that. Obviously, there's a myriad of other things we look at when we look at the chart. But in terms of talking about the sun, I wanted to give you that. Okay. All right. Before we step out, I'm going to do our question of the day. Oh, no, that's not the question. Oh, you guys, that wasn't the question that I wanted, but I'll go ahead and put it up anyway. I didn't save what I put. How can I get started learning all about astrology? Well, start here. Absolutely. But also make sure you register for that virtual class because we have more time to go through this. And what's cool about doing this class is that it will allow you to ask questions. All of you are going to have your charts out. We are going to go around the virtual space. You don't have to talk, but I'm going to give each person an opportunity. Tell me more about your placements. Tell me about your sun. Okay, where is the sun sign? Okay, think about these things. Do you have questions? Do you have challenges? What is it? And that's how we have more time to do it. So if it's something that you're like, I think I want to do that, then go to findingyourvoiceafter40.com/courses. I also, and I didn't put this down. I need to type this. I'm going to type this right now because this is important. I also have a new Finding Love using astrology It's a new virtual workshop that's coming up February 4th for Valentine's month. It's February. So let me write it down. Finding love using astrology shop. And the way that you are going to find that is just simple. It's find, oh, wait, let me put it down. Find Astro Love. Eventbrite. Right? I need to, this is also on the website. You can technically also find it on the website. But for the sake of time, because I was typing fast, Finding Love Using Astrology Workshop. And so next week, I'll talk even more about this workshop, okay? Because we're going to be talking about the moon next week. And the moon, let me tell you what, the moon tells a whole lot about you. A whole lot. The sun does in our most glorious and shining way, but the moon gets a little bit more to the truth. Gets a little bit more to the truth of how you do your daily life. Okay. And so at that point, I'll talk more about this workshop. But if you're like, no, I already know, I want to go to this workshop or I want to learn more, go to findastrolove.eventbrite.com. You can also go to my website that I had up before. If you scroll, it says see upcoming events. You click on that and then you'll see it in that as well. This is only a $25 holding fee. So you don't, as long as you attend, you get your $25 back. And if you're part of my Patreon community, patreon.com/finding your voice, then any level of that community, whatever tier you're on in that community, then you'll get a promo code and you get to go for completely free. Or if you're one of my clients. Or if you register for the course, if you register for the 6-week course, after I get notification that you've registered, then I send you this promo code so that you can attend. Okay. So lots of ways for you to support you. We're kicking off 2024 I'm really excited in a really wonderful way to help people really dig into their astrology. Okay. All right. Well, you guys have an amazing Sunday. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking about the moon. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you share. Feel free to comment, book a free discovery call or a reading. Let's stay connected. All right, you guys take care.